Hello, lovely people. I'm very excited today to be sharing with you quite a different video. So, I am going to be introducing to you in a minute a guy called Stephen Pye. Stephen is a conditioning coach for bodybuilders and bikini competitors. And you might be thinking, conditioning coach? Bodybuilders? What the hell has it got to do with you, piffle sticks? Well, he is a mental conditioning coach. He's all about the mind, and he's going to focus on my mind, and he's trying to just broaden his client base, get into the world of chess. He's a chess enthusiast, and he is working with me for 3 months. So he's going to be working on my relationship with blunders, my ability to focus over long periods of time, and he's going to be using things like routines, habits, and probably some other things I don't even know about to do so. He's also a personal trainer, so he's going to be setting me up with light workout plan and nutritional guidance. I'm sure you'll be able to take away something from this session that you can apply to your own game and your own relationship with the mental side of chess. Stephen is taking on new clients, but he's only got slots for 3 new clients at the moment. So get him on his email address. He's not a social media guy, so you need to email him at contact@mentalconditioning.coach, and I will share that email address in the description of this video. Without any further ado, I am very happy to welcome to the channel Stephen Pye.
For the first session, there's 2 things that I kind of want to focus on. I want to focus on like a technique that you can use while you're actually at the board playing a game, right? And then something I want to give you some homework.
Nice.
So the first thing, have you ever heard of the Bolt test?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, so it's the body oxygen level test, right?
No,
So breath is super important, and the way our body uses oxygen can affect our energy levels, our ability to focus, our sleep. It influences basically everything. So what I'd like to get you to do is just like we can talk like normally, but for the next maybe 2 or 3 minutes, let's just focus on breathing in through your nose only and exhaling through the nose as well. Right? So just nothing special, right? Just breathe through the nose and out through the nose. And then what I'd like you to do is in a couple of minutes, I want you to slowly exhale, and you don't have to force it out, right? So that you don't have any oxygen left. But what I'd like you to do is after you just exhale normally, we're going to time you, and then how long it takes you to get that sensation of needing to breathe will help determine like a baseline of what your bolt score is. So it's not like a test of willpower. You're not going to hold your breath
until I notice that I've got the desire.
Yeah, just the first sensation of it. And that's going to help give me kind of like a nice little benchmark of how effective you are at breathing. So I know it seems like kind of like a lame thing to be starting with is like
not
breathing,
at all.
but it's
no. I'm into that. I read Breath by James Nestor recently.
Yeah, so Breath is a really good book. James Nestor, I'm a big fan of him.
But definitely not an expert. He just sort of came into it as in a more of like a journalistic way.
Yeah. Well, he's really good, and Patrick McKeown is big on breath work and stuff. But what this is going to do, like this has helped the bodybuilders that I work with so much, right? They have like really horrible sleep apnea. They're attached to the machines, like they're like in not good shape for that. Okay, so I'm going to get a stopwatch here, and so what I'd like you to do is just exhale just normally, and then give me a thumbs up whenever you've exhaled normally, and then I'll time you.
Just as a question before we start, shall I exhale my complete lung capacity or just exhale the normal amount that I normally would?
Just a normal amount. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was, I'm not sure if you can see, 13 seconds.
Yeah.
13 seconds before you get the desire to breathe. So generally,
it's quite a hard one. It's quite a hard one to gauge. I was like trying to figure out like, do I want to breathe yet? It's hard to figure out when there's that desire, but yeah.
It is. Yeah, it's kind of whenever you feel like your diaphragm needing to contract. Is that where you felt it kind of?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was
Do
trying
you
not
want
to
to do
be
it again?
like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it again. I was trying not to be pushing it too far. Like I'm not interested in getting a high score here. But I'm naturally like,
Yeah,
yeah, I can go longer than this. I'm fine. I don't need to breathe. So it's like
yeah. It's
there's a
just a
competitive
physical
urge.
sensation.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I'll try again. I'll try again.
Yeah.
See if
So just let
I
me know
go
when
too
you're.
early or late.
Yeah. And just give me a thumbs up. Yeah.
Yeah, now.
Okay, so about 15 seconds. So yeah, you're roughly around the same as before. So generally, 25 seconds is where we would be, where we're about 95% sure that there's no breathing issues, right? And then 40 seconds is basically what we would consider optimal, right? So
Nice.
what this, like, again, this isn't like a definitive, like, scientific study here, but
Mm-hmm.
generally, if we're under 25 seconds, there's a lot of, basically, I would consider easy improvement that we can make towards your breathing efficiency. So what happens is generally a lot of people breathe too much, right? So
Mm.
then what happens is they become less efficient. So your homework, that I would like you to try to do is breathing in through the nose basically all the time. You should probably never breathe through the mouth. So just being consciously aware of that, right? I'm sure you've heard that through the James Nestor book.
Mm.
Um, but a way that you can test that is when you're breathing, if you just put your finger just below your nostrils and you exhale, you shouldn't feel any air come out, right? So it should be a light breath and slow. So in a perfect world, we would be breathing around 4.5 to 6.5 times per minute. If your bolt test is 15 seconds, you're probably breathing at around anywhere between 13 and 16 times a minute.
Mm.
And we want to try to lower that. And the reason that we do that is because the less rests you take, right, the more efficient your body has to be with oxygen and carbon dioxide. So
Nice.
yeah, and this will take a couple of weeks, right? This is something that you should try to be mindful of as often as possible.
Mm.
And then what you can do is the bolt test is generally best done in the morning. So maybe tomorrow morning you can try it again yourself. And it's not something that you're going to see improvements with right away, but as you become more efficient with breathing through the nose, um, you'll feel more energy basically. So that's one thing that I would suggest.
Yeah, I'm keen.
Any questions about that?
Well, it's interesting because I have been mouth taping for the past
Mm-hmm.
year or so,
Yeah,
and with a view to trying to do that more, so like breathe through my nose more. But I do notice myself almost like an instinctual thing when I've done some heavy intensive exercise, and I don't really need to
yeah,
breathe through my mouth, but it's like like I come after,
yeah,
you know, do some like resistance training where I've just got to the end of a set and I'm like quite tired. Like I don't really need to breathe in that much. Like I'm not, but then
yeah.
my response is to open my mouth and start breathing heavily. So yeah, I definitely feel like I still have some work
Yeah.
to do.
So that sensation there is basically a sign that your body isn't as efficient at utilizing oxygen as it could be. Right.
Mm.
So yeah, definitely it's very tempting, after a heavy set or whatever, to get in as much air as possible. But
Mm.
if you're just mentally cognizant of just like trying to go through the nose, and it'll likely feel like you need to yawn or sigh after, if you're consciously trying to breathe through the nose instead of the mouth. That's
Okay.
fine. But again, just you want to try to fight that as much as possible. And I find like having a goal of, we'll just say like 6 to 7 breaths per minute, is really going to help you. So it's about 6 seconds in through the nose, hold for maybe 2 seconds, and then exhale for 6 seconds, and then hold for 2 seconds. Like that's generally
Nice.
the cadence that you want to go at throughout the whole day. Um, then obviously things are is it's going to change and it's a slow process. But I'm glad that you're mouth taping though.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
nice.
It's one of those things where if you tell people that you tape your mouth closed at night, their first reaction is like, what? I told a
Yeah.
friend recently, he thought I was just joking, and I had to be like, I sort of got a feeling that he thought I was joking, so I sort of said it. I sort of continued to talk about it, and he was like, you're joking, right? This isn't. This is some terrible bad joke." So yeah, it was.
Yeah, well, that's one of the first things I get the bodybuilders to do because they all sleep with like, oh, they're brutal
Yeah,
that
it's a
way.
chronic problem with bodybuilding, isn't it? It
It's
can
really
kill you
bad.
as well.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, definitely. So, yeah, that would be one thing that I would try to get you to do is
Yeah,
count
I'll
your
give it a go.
not count your breaths, but aim for 6 to 7 breaths a minute, and then time it so that the cadence is a nice slow and controlled. And then what that's going to do is your breathing during the day will set the tone for how you breathe at night. And since you're mouth taping, it's going to be a lot more efficient. But
Nice.
what I would really like is by the end of these 12 weeks with each other, your bolt test should be anywhere between 25 and 40 seconds. You
Nice.
know, if we can get to 30 seconds between now and 12 weeks from now, I'd be very, very happy with that. So,
Brilliant.
um,
Do you have any
yeah.
techniques for remembering, or like, is it just good to periodically throughout the day refocus and think, okay, like try like I'll just try for the next few minutes to slow down my breathing, and then I'm
Yeah.
likely
So,
to forget and then just come back to it.
one thing that has really helped me and some of the clients that I teach is a physical reminder, right? So, generally, if you're not breathing in deep and slow, you're breathing in through the chest, right? So, your chest is elevating. If you try to think like you want to feel like your diaphragm or your belly button, you can think of it as your belly button expanding, right? So you'll have that physical cue of like your stomach pushing against like your clothes or just expanding. So I would use that like if you find yourself breathing and you don't physically notice that you're breathing, that could be the cue that you need to remind yourself to breathe through the diaphragm rather than through the
Brilliant.
chest.
That's good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, that would be one thing that I would suggest. You could get really fancy with it and buy yourself like some kinese tape or kinesiology tape,
Yeah.
and then strap it like as an X across like your back, and then whenever you're breathing shallow, right, you won't feel it, or you do feel it like
I
across your
see. I
back,
see. I
and then you
see.
breathe deep, and you don't feel it. Like that's that
I've got some of that tape,
I
so
don't.
I might give that a go.
Yeah, yeah. So that's one trick there. Do you have any more questions about the bolt test or just breathing in
No,
general?
no. I'll try. I'll give that a go, and I'll let you know next week how it's going. And yeah, I'll try.
Yeah.
I'll
So what?
set. I'll put like a little post-it note or something to say to remind me on my computer to remind me to breathe.
Yeah, like just 6 to 7 breaths per minute. And I think one thing that really helps a lot of people is just being mindful of like not breathing during the exhale, like or after the exhale, right? Just for 2 seconds, and then not breathing after the inhale as well. Just again, just for 2 seconds, rather than a continuous flow. Because again, most of us breathe way too much, and then we lose efficiency with that. Um, so the
Brilliant.
next thing that I would have it's we don't have to do it now, but it's I call it catching thoughts, and it's kind of it's a way to gauge your attention span, and also kind of like it's a form of breath work as well. So just whenever you can, maybe once or twice a day, just spend 3 minutes focusing on your breathing, right? So you've done meditation before, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so focus on your breath. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. But what I'd like you to do is, as you're doing that, have a piece of paper or like a notepad out on your computer or your phone or whatever. And
Yeah.
every time that you find yourself getting distracted, just write down like a stroke or like a notch on the paper or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
then at the end of so just do it for 3 minutes. And then at the end of the 3 minutes, you can see, oh, I lost my focus 26 times in 3 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And then you keep testing that, and maybe it'll be 25 times the next time, or um, it might be 40 times the next time, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you can track your ability to um, train your attention span. So that's just like a quick, easy thing that you can do. Like it's useful for me to gauge your ability to focus on your breath, and also your attention span. And it's also obviously like it's a nice form of meditation that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. Do you
Okay.
have any questions about that?
Should that be is that more of a test or is it more of a practice? So should I be doing that every day?
You should do it every day.
Okay.
It's a test and practice. So what I'll
Brilliant.
do
Okay.
in next session, um, like if you can, just tally up all your averages, right? So Monday, Tuesday, I did this many and whatever. And then we can see if there's a trend going up, down, or the same. And what that's going to tell me is a few different things. The main one is again your attention span through a short 3 minute exercise, and it kind of gets you used to like a consistent, easy breath work meditation routine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so
Yeah,
uh, with the, I'm imagining from yeah the idea of the catching thoughts. I can imagine that the ability to notice the thoughts will probably increase. So it's like
yeah,
maybe at the beginning, like I see, like you say, 26, and then the next day it's 40. And it's not that I've
yeah,
been distracted more. It's maybe that I've got a little bit better at noticing that I was distracted when previously I thought I'm this
yeah. You're Zen monk or
ethereal,
whatever, right?
beautiful monk. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the it's so important to be able to recognize like a lot of people think that meditation is just about clearing your mind and being at one with with the ethereal universe or whatever. But
Yeah.
what it is it's constantly training your attention, right? It'd be like, okay, I'm thinking about puppies, back to the breath. Oh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking about rent, back to the breath, whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? And that carries over to long chess games, right? Or even short ones, I guess, right? Where you kind of lose your focus, but then you are able to you're training your brain's ability to go back into the present moment,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So in Stoicism, right, it's called prosoche, which is the Latin term for their version of mindfulness, right? So this is just kind of getting us started on those on the path to that. So yeah, and your numbers will probably be all over the place depending on when you do the tests. Like it might be um, lower, just like you'll have less distractions possibly in the morning compared to if you do it in the evening, right? So um, yeah,
Mm.
it's going to help me in the future for our next session.
Nice. Looking forward to it. Yeah. So our next session then, just to make sure I know, I'll come to you with my
Yeah,
daily bolt test score.
yeah,
So you'll have 6 or 7 bolt test scores. Um, daily catching thoughts numbers, and
yeah,
then I will attempt to throughout the day breathe more slowly, diaphragm breathing, and
yeah,
breathe fewer times per minute as well, and just
yeah.
generally
So
less.
yeah, generally less, right? And what's going to happen, or most likely what's going to happen, is you're going to feel the need to yawn or
Mm.
sigh or stretch or whatever, and it's going to be generally it's kind of uncomfortable and annoying, but that's a good sign. It means that you're
Okay.
slowly becoming more efficient. And I'm telling you, like if we get your bolt test up to 30 to 40 seconds before that first sensation of needing to breathe, you're going to feel a lot more alert. You'll have more energy. Your body's just going to be more efficient. So um, that's
Brilliant.
a good,
Looking,
2 or
looking
3
forward to
month
that.
goal from now. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So that's kind of like the short term homework that I have for you. The next is what to actually do during a game, or like it could be like a classical game or an online game of chess. So generally, what we want to do is it's a recognize, release, and refocus routine, right? So there's you were mentioning before that you found yourself like sometimes if you're in a game and you make a bad move or whatever, that your body language and your self talk kind of changes, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you aware of how it changes, like what actually happens?
I think. Thank you very much. I think that my so say if I make a bad move and I notice as soon as I notice that a move that I've made was a mistake. So maybe I make a move and then I go, oh, I missed this idea. Or I don't notice straight away. My opponent then makes a move which highlights the fact that my move was in fact a mistake.
Yeah.
I naturally feel quite like frustrated, and so I'm almost initially just focusing on trying to relax and calm myself down from that, and not beat myself up about it, because I realized that actually the most important thing to do is to continue to calculate as if it was just an unemotional, like as if I was impartial, like as if it was just didn't reflect on me at all, and
Right.
so yeah, I can feel myself almost distracted by the emotion of the situation, like the trying to just gently push away or control my reaction so that I'm not just reacting impulsively.
Okay. And do you have like a routine or a system that you use to help control your reaction or to refocus?
Not really, no. I suppose it's more. I suppose it's quite similar each time, but it's more just like every so quickly I tell myself, like, okay, I'm never going to stop making blunders. Like you see the
Yeah.
best chess players in the world making blunders, they just make them less often. So for me to be
Yep.
like enraged by the blunder is like it's just
Yeah.
it's doesn't make sense, and I can easily argue that away. So I sort of tell myself quickly, like, okay, that's fine. Blunders are going to happen. It's how you react to them. It's a little bit of like positive self-talk, or like but rational,
Yep.
like, okay, it's not me trying to sort of just be nice to myself. It's like it's unreasonable to be um like to expect me never to make mistakes like this,
That's
but that's
right.
pretty
Yeah.
much it. Just a bit of like, look, we now need to focus, and then try and get back into calculating.
Okay. So I'm a firm believer in when blunders or mistakes or inaccuracies happen or whatever, like, bad thing happens or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
having some sort of set system to mentally overcome it is really useful. So, I also train a lot of fighters, right? And in between rounds, they're like, "Oh, geez, I just got my nose punched in or whatever. Like
Yeah,
I'm miserable, right?"
yeah,
Having some sort of set thing to help them get over like that horrible last round, and just be in the moment, I think is really helpful. So, there's the first suggestion I have is, yes, once you do make a blunder, there's the idea of, if you have time, right, is coming at it from a place of curiosity, right? So
mm,
when we're looking for motivation, right, curiosity is a very useful internal motivator. So like once you make the blunder, you can be like, oh wow, that's really exciting. I'm looking forward to learning from this after the game, right? So
yeah,
that could be like the first just blanket statement that you can do to kind of help you refocus. Um, in terms of the routine, um, there's a few things here that I would suggest. So we want to release. So there's recognize, release, and refocus. So we need to first recognize once you're in a bad, negative, like mental state, right? Or once you've
mm-hmm.
recognized that you've made a blunder. So the the one that I would suggest is a three-step routine to first release it. So generally doing something physical, right? So if you're playing a game of chess, right, you could grab a pawn, right, and then have like some sort of routine where you circle it three times, or just some sort of physical cue that
Yeah,
tells your brain, okay, I'm initiating the release routine. It doesn't have
I
to
like
be a
that.
pawn. It doesn't have to be anything on the board, but something that you can always have available,
Mm.
to help your brain recognize, okay, I've made a blunder and I need to uh, be in the present moment, basically.
Yeah,
So it doesn't really matter what it is, as long as it's something physical. that again, it sets your brain up to know what the routine is.
Yeah.
Do you watch baseball at all?
No, no, I don't actually.
No?
I know the
So
rules.
baseball,
So if it,
yeah,
if that helps.
baseball like is one of the most. You look at the batters or the pitchers, and they are machines. They have their special little routine. Like
Mm,
the batter hits the or he pats the ground twice with his bat. He wipes it off. Right, that's his
yeah.
physical cue to get over the last pitch and then get ready for the next one. So with chess players, it's amazing to me that more people don't have physical routines to
Mm,
kind of get over
yeah.
blunders.
That's
So
a really good point.
um, yeah, so and there could be a difference between playing over the board and then on your computer, right? If you're at home playing a game, it's so much easier. You can have like you could take like a chess piece or whatever,
Yeah.
and then just and you don't want to constantly be fiddling with it, right? Because then
Mm.
it becomes kind of like a
It muddies the waters then a little bit. It's not as clear.
yeah, it muddies the water. So only whenever you find yourself uh, in a
This is
bad
cool.
mental state.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like this
so
idea a lot.
yeah, so that would be the physical component of it. The next part would be having a deep breath, a mindful breath on a focal point, right? So once you've done your physical action, then you move to breath and focus, right? So if it's online, right? I'm not sure what your desk setup looks like or uh, where you're playing, but you could have a place that you just always look at, and then while you do your breath, right? So you could have a
Okay, nice.
nice big slow controlled inhale and slow exhale while looking at that is the exact same spot every single time, right? Because you want to routinize it.
Mm,
um, and then you say okay, back to the present, right?
nice.
If you're in a tournament or you're playing at a chess club or wherever you do, right, it's going to be probably different than or each time it might be slightly different. So you
Mm,
can look at the clock, you can look at um, like the coordinates, like I usually looked at A1, right, on the coordinate of the board,
nice. Okay.
right, while I'm doing the breathing, because it's always there, or whatever coordinate. Like if you're black, it'd be H8 or whatever, right? So just a focal point after your physical release, then you do your breathing, and then if you want, I'm like I this one isn't as important, but it is something to kind of help you finish off the routine because you don't want to have like
Mhm.
this big, huge, long routine in between chess moves, right?
Yeah,
But the
yeah, yeah.
last part you could do is some sort of verbal trigger um, that you could say out loud, or you could sub vocalize it in your mind, right? So it could be any word, right? You could be, you could literally say refocus or
Hmm.
um, next move or just something to kind of close off your routine,
Nice.
and that can
Yeah.
symbolize it will eventually train your brain to well release refocus uh, like to recognize release and refocus back into the game, right? Because you don't
Brilliant.
want to go down like a destructive, not destructive, but like um, you don't want to kind of mess up your train of thought during the game. So that would be the first step, right? Is
Fantastic.
the physical, the breath, and then the verbal. That would be my suggestion for the three-step release routine. Do you have any questions about that?
I think it makes a lot of sense. So, would the trigger always be make a blunder or feel a sense of frustration at something I've done? Would that be the clean trigger?
So that would be the next step is recognizing when you do need to use the release uh, routine, right?
Okay.
So the easiest or the most efficient way that I found was body language, focus, and self-talk, or BFS, right?
Hmm.
So recognizing when your body language, focus, and or self-talk is not aligned, is not focused on the present moment.
Okay.
Generally, if your focus or your self-talk is in the future or in the past, you're not optimal, right? You're not exactly where you want to
Hmm.
be like,
Okay.
let's say you blunder your queen or whatever. If you find yourself saying like, "Oh my God," like I can't believe I did that. He's easily going to checkmate me now or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a very simplified example, but it's you're projecting into the future, right? Which you don't have any control over, right? The only thing you can control is the present moment, right? So for recognizing, this is something that you could write down or you could just mentally take a note of. But you want to know when your body language is at its best and when it's at its worst, when your focus is at its best and when it's at its worst, and when your self talk is at its best and when it's at its worst. Right. So
Okay.
if you make a blunder, mentally, you might not be saying anything, right? But your body language could shrivel up,
Mm.
right? And then you're not going to be um, as efficient as you could be, right? So recognizing, okay, my shoulders are slumped, or I'm doing this, or like
Mm-hmm.
whatever it
Yeah.
is, right? So
Yeah.
recognizing your body language, right? And same with your focus. Your focus wants to be on the present move, right? Or like the part that you can control, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
you might be calculating into the future, but if your focus is back on the like 2 moves ago, I should have
Yeah.
moved my pawn here, right? That's not going to help, right? And then if your self talk is a fairly easy one, right? Where you're beating yourself up mentally about like making a move, right? So um, those would be the three triggers that you can use to recognize, okay, I need to initiate my release routine.
Okay.
If your body language is really good, your focus is on the present moment, and your self talk is useful, then you don't need to initiate the release routine.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not
yeah,
just blunders; it's my reaction to potentially a
yeah,
blunder
well,
or anything that's happening on the board. That's useful.
yeah, exactly. Something that basically takes you away from the process or the present moment,
Brilliant.
right? And then
Yeah.
just systematizing it. Um, and again, these like your BFS, body language focused self talk, is going to be different than like the other clients that I have, right? But just recognizing, I think putting into like a chart. Okay, here's what I do when I'm at my best. Here's what I do when I'm at my worst. Another
Mm.
analogy, if you want, is like the green light, like it's called the traffic light system, right? So when you're in green light, that means your body language is, your shoulders are good, or you're in a relaxed, comfortable position. Your focus is on the present moment, all that good stuff. If you're in a yellow light, right, you can take that to mean is like, okay, the posture's starting to break down a little bit, or I'm catching myself regretting that move 2 or 3 moves back or whatever.
Mm. Yeah.
Uh, and your focus is somewhere else, right? And then if you're in red light, that means like you're. Did you see Hikaru at the Champions Chess Tour? I think it is what it was.
The recent
Well,
one.
he made a bad move, and he was just like, like right, like we would call that a red light, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a disaster,
A clear red light.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that analogy might be helpful for you. Some people don't
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it. But if you're like, okay, I'm in green light, everything's good, and just being able to recognize what your BFS, body language, focus, self talk is at, um, you can have that kind of that mental imagery. You're like, oh, I'm in red light now, and then once you recognize, then you initiate, the physical cue. Okay, I
Mm.
do, I don't know, some sort of trick with the pawn or whatever it is,
Yeah.
that you find that you can consistently do, and train your brain. Like it will probably feel a bit clunky when you first start it, and it might not feel like it helps you. But as you condition your brain
Yeah.
to
To take it over
recognize, okay,
time.
this is my release routine, I'm going to get back into green light, or I'm going to improve my body language, focus, and self talk.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I like the sound of that a lot. I think I need to make sure my physical routine isn't something which, if I'm playing in a tournament and my opponent sees me pick up the pawn or whatever and twiddle him, it's like, oh, I've got him. He's tilted.
Yeah,
So imagine
exactly. Right. Yeah. So
it needs to be
just something, it could be
something
something really
subtle.
small, or yeah, something subtle. Um, or it could even be like, um, yeah, something physically with your hands,
Mm.
or you could like, if you're at a table, right, you can kind of like squeeze the table, right, and then
Yeah. Okay.
like just
Yeah.
the
No one
light
can even
speeds.
see that
Doesn't
I'm
have to
doing
be,
it.
yeah, no one can see it. It could be anything, right? Or like depending on the length of the game, you could physically stand up and
Yeah.
and do something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that might be get a bit obvious if you need to release a bunch of times, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, just figuring that out for yourself, and you can brainstorm that, or but the most important thing is it needs to be consistently the same.
Mm,
Now,
yeah.
online and in person can be different,
That's what I was
but
going to
it
ask
should be,
actually. Yeah. So I guess it'll take a little bit more time to embed if it's different for online and in person. But I guess
yeah,
you can embed them both independently, and it won't take too
yeah,
long in
exactly,
general.
exactly. And that's the thing, like what you're focusing on, you know, in person is going to be different than what you're focusing on and doing your breath at the computer, right? Because at home, right,
Mm.
you will always have the same spot that you can visually focus on.
Yes,
Whereas at a
exactly. Yeah, I
tournament
won't have
or in
that.
the head, yeah, it's going to be different.
And you can't
It's
even
the same
have
thing.
it's you can't even have the same spot at the tournament because there'll be different tournaments in different locations. So,
Exactly, right? And in
but
sometimes like
would you pick the ball? Would you mentioned like maybe looking at A1 or at H8?
yeah,
That could be a
that's
good
what I would suggest because it's
yeah
always going to be the same,
yeah
and
nice.
it's always there, and it's small enough where you can focus visually on it, right?
Mm.
And it doesn't change. Um, like looking at a clock would is okay, but it changes every second, right? It's going
Yeah
down.
yeah.
Um, and that can be a little bit distracting. So you want to eliminate as many variables as possible,
Hmm.
um, and then just always have it the same.
Nice.
And it's okay, like to change it eventually, right? Like you might find like, oh, I hate fiddling with the pawn or whatever. I want to, the knight might be better or whatever it is. Um,
Hmm.
but as long as you're consciously trying to make it consistent and figuring out what works best for you.
Brilliant. That sounds really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to starting getting to that. I think that's what I lack. Um, I lack this system, or no, I lack systems in general whilst playing games. So I know that I should be checking for checks, blunders, checks, threats, and captures,
Yeah.
whatever order. But like I should be
Yeah.
checking for those every move, and or even just having a basic checklist. And I have said I will start doing that, and
Mm-hmm.
looking also what's my opponent's idea. They've made a move. What's my opponent's idea for that move? Like, and I've not got into the habit of doing that. So that's another thing I'd like to get into the habit of doing. I think if I start doing this, what you're suggesting, it will. It's like a trigger to. I can attach other systems or routines onto that. So okay, so if I notice that I'm feeling flustered or my body language is off, then that can trigger me to do the routine that you just mentioned, and then I can also then
Yeah.
also remember to do checks, captures, and threats.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, well, that's the thing. Like the great thing that kind of attracted me to chess is that it's basically all mental, right? Like, and there's routines that you have to mentally remember. I guess at least at the beginner level. I don't know about grandmasters where they just instantly know it, but
Mm.
uh, yeah, having a mental checklist like checks, captures, threats. What's my opponent's intention? Like, what did they do that they can't do now, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we can work on that next week, where you can have like I can help you set up a mental checklist for after every move that it needs to be done. Like maybe not so much out of the opening if you're aware of the theory or whatever,
Mm.
but once the position gets more complicated, then yeah, I can help you set up a way to kind of help remember the CCT or checks, captures, threats,
Nice.
or whatever it is that your coaches tell you that you need to focus on. Again, I'm
Yeah.
not a good chess player, but um,
Well, I
yeah,
mean, I think this like for this kind of thing, it's like almost agnostic to your rating. Like if you
yeah,
like
exactly.
you understand that checks, captures, threats might be something, or something like that might be necessary, and your expertise lies in how to implement that. So I don't think you need to be
Yeah, well,
like
that's one thing I've learned is right. Success leaves clues, right? So what works with the bodybuilders, you can modify that toward a chess player, right? Um, yeah. Do you have any questions about anything else?
The only thing we've got 9 minutes left, just because unfortunately one of my only
Yeah.
other meetings of the week is
Oh,
was scheduled for just an hour
yeah,
after
yeah,
our
no
meeting.
problem.
But one thing that I noticed recently, which I thought would be maybe worth asking you about, is if I'm playing a classical game, my heart
Yeah.
rate is I haven't actually put on my heart rate monitor. I'll do that soon, just to sort of track what it's like over a classical game. It's very high.
Yeah.
And it's like if I'm being attacked or if I'm attacking or if I notice a good move, I'm like excited to make a move, but it could be, oh, it could not work. Maybe I'm just missing something. Like my heart rate goes so high and it's like a heavy heartbeat as I can feel it. And my hands get quite cold and my feet get quite cold. And I've been thinking my room's not warm enough. And then I looked at it, I was like, wait a minute. I think when you get stressed, like chronically, one of the symptoms can be cold feet and cold hands. And I think that what's happening is my body's like, you're in fight or flight. You're an anxious human right now. There's no time to heat your fingers. They're just gonna the
Yeah.
organs are the most important thing. So I wonder if the things you've already mentioned are quite exciting for me, because just generally breathing in a more
Mhm.
calm and controlled way, I think will help. And then having a response to when I feel like those body language, self-talk, and I can't remember the other one, but
Yeah. Body
what's
language, focus, and self-talk.
focus. So yeah. I was like, it's an F, but I can't remember what F. And
Yeah.
those things will be excellent. I just wonder if you have any other thoughts about generally just being in a state of heightened anxiety throughout a classical game.
Yeah. So it comes down to breathing again. So generally, again, this is just a general rule. There are exceptions, of course, but generally, if you want to increase your awareness and your energy levels, you would have quick exhales, right? So let's say you breathe in for 5 seconds and then you
Mm-hmm.
exhale for 1 second, right? That is going to kind of heighten you, right, and get you more elevated, which is not what you want, right? So, for you, if you need to slow down your heart rate uh, and relax a bit more, then I would suggest increasing the length of your exhale, slow and
Brilliant.
controlled, right? Because um, your physiology will determine your psychology, right?
Okay.
If you're breathing really like in a like not hyperventilating, but if you're breathing too fast, that's going to tell your system like, hey, something bad is happening. I need to tense up. And, but if you're consciously aware of a slow and controlled cadence with your breathing, it's going to help you lower your heart rate. Wesley So was actually really bad for this. There was some sort of tournament where they track their heart rate, and Wesley's at like 160, 170, and
Mm,
Hikaru, Magnus, they're at 80 or 90 or whatever.
yeah.
Um, but yeah,
I think
so the
Magnus is
easiest,
notoriously low heart rate. Like he can be in a very
yeah,
stressful or what would look like a stressful situation for a normal person, and his like heart rate's like at 70 something, and you're like, how are you, how are you just this relaxed?
well, if you look at his body language, right, it's very rare that you'll see him all tensed up at the board,
Mm,
right? And I think he's probably it either comes to him naturally because he's been playing since he was in the womb,
mm,
or he's had some training with it. But
mm.
for us mere mortals, having some sort of yeah, just again recognize. I know it's like just recognizing that the slow exhale will physiologically help change your heart rate, and it's not going to
Brilliant.
be something that happens instantly. But again, if you find that happening, well, the trick is to not get in that position anyway, right?
Mm,
So being aware of your breathing the whole time throughout the whole game will help kind of relax you a bit more. But if you do find that, like, oh, we're in a time scramble or there's, um, some sort of drama at the chessboard that uh, has got you elevated, right? Which is natural,
mm.
then just instantly going to, okay, let's double the length of my exhale
Brilliant. Okay.
and
Yeah.
always through the nose, right? Don't
Yeah.
breathe
Yeah.
through the mouth, basically ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm convinced of
Um,
that. I think I'm pretty good at it, but I'm not sure. So I'll be extra conscious of it.
yeah, like if you just time yourself, like how many times you breathe per minute, and then recognize, okay, the new goal is 6 or 7 times a minute. You'll get that feel for what it
Mm.
should feel like, and then maybe 5 times an hour, you have a good slow breathing cadence, right? And then eventually, with time, it becomes more natural.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate you giving me homework. I think that's I'm looking forward to getting through these and then coming back with a bit of a report about how I've done. And
Yeah.
I'll also try and I'll dig my heart rate meter out the cupboard and put that on for a classical game and try and notice when I do the breathing exercises to see if I notice a difference. I'm sure I will,
Yeah.
because it's almost impossible. If you slow your breathing down loads,
Yeah.
you're
It'd
probably
be
going
hard
to
not to,
lower your
right?
heart. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And
I
then
really
the better
appreciate
you
it.
get at breathing that, you're welcome. No problem.
So you don't need to mean to
Oh,
interrupt you. Go on.
yeah. Just the better you get at these breathing exercises, and the more it becomes like a routine for you. Again, the brain really does crave routine when it comes to situations like this. So the more you just are able to instantly snap into it, right? The faster you'll be able to lower your blood pressure, or your heart rate rather.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm looking
it's
forward
a
to that.
slow process, but you will get there.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really excited about this. All right, brilliant first session. I'm looking forward to getting stuck in with my homework. And
Good.
yeah, let's organise the next session. I'll send you an email.
Sounds good. Take
All
care,
right, have
Ben.
a lovely rest of your week. See you later.
You as well. Bye now.
Stephen is also a why can't I say certified personal trainer? Jesus Christ! Stephen is also a certified personal trainer. Yes. So he will be getting me booked in with him. Then he will be pretty. I'm sure he'll be he'll be pretty booked up. So you just got to get him. You just got to get him. Stephen is pretty booked up with bodybuilders at the moment.